Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, TJ Trimboli, as always, and with me is my co-host, Commander of the Armies of the North, General of the Felix Legions, husband to a murdered wife and father to a murdered son, Gladiator himself, Mr. James O'Reilly.
Hey buddy, how you doing?
We're doing good, man. We are doing good. We are back again, and each week we run down a movie from my 1,000 movies in theaters, and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. And Jim, what movie do we have for the sweet people today?
We have the 2000 historical drama Gladiator.
Oh, yeah, that absolute classic, directed by the maestro himself, Ridley Scott, and starring Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix. The film follows Maximus, who is betrayed when Commodus, the ambitious son of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, murders his father and seizes the throne. Reduced to slavery, Maximus becomes a gladiator and rides through the ranks of the arena to avenge the murders of his family and his emperor. That is a much more concise plot description than last week's Phantom Menace. That was all of 2 sentences. That's how you write a goddamn log line right there.
Yeah. It's amazing how that works, right? When it's like a good movie, how you can sum it up into into a few words.
In 2 sentences, we got across what it took like a paragraph and a half for Star Wars to dive into. Now, as always, we like to take a look back to the years past where we were when these movies came out. And Jim, I think this is a special occasion for us. This might be the first time we've got a movie where you can definitively say you saw it
I
in theaters, right?
so I'm pretty sure I told you that last week, and I don't know that that's actually true because I've been thinking about it, and I feel like the first time I actually watched this was at home, but
Man,
like on
everything I
like a
know is a lie.
blockbuster rental kind of thing.
My world is slowly crumbling again.
It might have been though. You're asking a lot for me to remember these things when I was like 9 or 10 years old. It's a long time ago.
This is true. This is true. This is so far back. Well, while we once again are hitting another week where Jim cannot decide if he saw this movie in theaters or not, I, however, do have a great memory of seeing this movie with my dad and my brother at the theater in Limbrook. We went and saw this
Oh,
movie, and I remember it so specifically because it was one of those it was one of the movies theaters that had like multiple levels. So like the old school kind of like opera house theaters that you don't really see anymore, where like you
sure.
could sit upstairs in like a mezzanine and then there's like the lower level. And so I don't even know if it's still there today, but this was around when I was still a kid back then. And we went and saw it. And I
Oh,
just remember sitting up on that mezzanine, being in the front row of the mezzanine, just leaning my head like over the side and just
is
like
it? Oh, hold on. Is it not mezzanine?
how am I saying it? Mezzanine? Am I
Like you're not
missing
putting
an
that
I?
last N in there. It
Am I
sounds like
missing
to
the
me.
I and E? The mezzanine,
Yeah, mezzanine. That's. I mean, I think
mezzanine,
that's how you say it. I don't really know.
mezzanine. Well, however you pronounce it, that's where I was sitting.
Sorry to interrupt. Go
No,
ahead.
no, listen, far be it from me, the guy who loves to speak eloquently, to be fucking up my words over here. But I remember sitting there in the front row, leaning over the side and just being mesmerized by this movie. And because I this was a seminal movie for me. Like I think this was the first time as a kid that I got to see a movie that was way above my weight class at that point. Like
Yeah,
we were 2000, we were what, 10, 11,
yeah.
going on 11.
Depending on the month, yeah, we would have
Yeah,
been like 10 or 11. Yeah.
going on 11 years old, and here I am, my dad's taking me to see Gladiator. Like this was movie was way above my weight class at that point, and I was
Yeah, I
just
mean,
floored.
I suppose so, yeah. And I mean, I definitely remember it being like pretty insane to watch as a kid because I mean, I can't remember if I saw it in theaters, but it wouldn't have been long after it was in theaters that I got to see it. And yeah, it's one of those movies like incredibly violent, but at the time, I don't know, it just felt like right at the time to watch stuff like that. I feel like it was a much different ball game back in 2000.
Feel like our parents were much more lenient as far as that goes than you see from generations now.
Yeah, and I mean it is violent, but it's also kind of tame in a way. I don't know. Like it's obviously a rated R movie, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
and
Even compared to some stuff now, it's like pretty toned down, I think.
it's pretty tame, and it does like it has moments of extreme violence, but I don't. But like it's so much more than just like I wouldn't go out and be like, yeah, it's a violent movie. Like it
Yeah,
just feels
like
like
that
a
wasn't my
really
big takeaway from it, was that it was
yeah,
super
like it's a
violent, you
very
know?
big dramatic movie that has moments of extreme violence in it. But I wouldn't like sit there and if somebody was like, "Is this movie too violent for kids?" I would like if I had an 11-year-old, I'd be like, "Nah, like it's
I mean,
history."
I didn't think so when I was 11 and I saw it. I thought it was like the perfect amount of violence.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So did I. I thought this was the perfect amount of violence for my 11-year-old brain to handle. I think that was probably where my fascination with like ancient Rome and like ancient Greece and all that like history really like blossomed for me. So like
Yeah.
it's interesting to get to see stuff like that when you're young and it has this like positive effect on you to the point
Well,
that it's
yeah.
not just like, hey, I like seeing dudes get cut in half in the blood. Like it was like, hey, ancient Rome sound looked really fucking interesting. I want to learn more about that shit.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think that's probably why I don't think of it as a violent movie, because there is so much more depth there, both in like the setting and the story.
This is true, yeah. And it feels like a lot of it is earned. Like all that
Oh, yeah,
violence.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's all earned. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We're already trying to dive into the movie, and we didn't even do our
Yeah. Well, sorry.
we didn't even do
Sorry.
our warm ups, and we didn't even do
Oh
those
boy. We
pre-workout
gotta
warm ups. I
we
still got
gotta
to do
get
my
through the
stretch.
warm-ups.
Yeah, still got to do my stretches here, Jim.
Let's
We're
get
already
into our
starting to
layup
lift. We're already
lines.
starting to lift the dumbbells. I don't have so much loaded trivia this week. I know we implemented it last week, and I was like, this is going to be great going forward. And Gladiator gave me nothing.
So I don't know if you're familiar with this. I think we might have briefly spoken about it at one point.
Okay.
But my favorite like piece of lore about this movie is that at some point in the early 2000s, there was a sequel in the works. Um, you've
Yes.
heard of this,
That's
right?
I've heard of the sequel, and every time it's brought up, it I want to live. We always talk about the alternate realities of some of these movies, but like fan casting. I want to live in that alternate world where that Gladiator sequel got made. Because the one they're
Yeah,
making now, I don't think so.
I mean, I haven't heard much about what the new one they're making now is about. I've
I
definitely
think it
heard more about this like famed sequel that was like written but obviously never filmed.
think the new one
Um,
follows the kid. But yeah, for the people at home that do not
oh
know
yeah,
that
I
there
have heard that.
was, yeah. But Jim, for the people at home that don't know the gloriousness of what Gladiator 2 could have been, give the people some knowledge.
Yeah, I mean like a basic plot summary as I understand it, which is not very well. There is like a draft of this that exists online that you can download the PDF for. I've never read it because I don't know if there's any way to really verify that that's the actual draft. So I don't know if I would like want to waste time reading it. Um, but the gist of it is they lean really hard into the supernatural, like Roman mythology side of things. And I like two Roman gods like bring Maximus back from the dead to kill Jesus Christ. That's like that's the plot of the movie. That's like what he's trying to accomplish. And it takes like a lot of twists and turns, and at some point he ends up getting cursed to live forever, and just like there's like a montage of him in like different wars, like including Vietnam. And like from what I've heard, it ends with him working at the Pentagon, like in modern day United States, like
Oh my
a
God.
Maximus who has lived for thousands of years and just wants to meet his family again, and he's like stuck living forever working at the Pentagon.
It's like one of those movies. It's so absurd that you don't even know where to begin unpacking all of the information of what you just said right there.
Yeah, like it's so absurd. It's astonishing to think that that like walked out of a room with people like paying someone money to write it.
Especially after like they just made this really grounded, like beautiful period piece that won Best Picture, and they were like, "How would we even make a sequel?" And they're like, "Supernatural death fights, baby! Like, like we got
Yeah.
it. gods are gonna bring him back from the dead, and they're gonna have him
Yeah,
kill
I mean,
Jesus Christ. Like it's like
just
what?
stop it. Gods are gonna bring him back from the dead, and you've already bastardized what is a classic movie, like so beyond repair.
Right?
Like you're in like straight to DVD territory, and then you tag on like the to kill Jesus Christ, and it's just like, what are we even talking about? Like,
The most
like
insane thing I've ever heard. And
just
one of the
really,
things
really swinging for the fences.
fences there. And I think one of my favorite things from it that I read too was that Russell Crowe was 100% on board too. Like he was like, I would do the
Yeah,
shit out of this
so
movie.
I don't know. I mean, I'll take your word for it because, like I said, I don't know much about this other than the fact that it exists, right? Or and like, there's probably so much mythology just about like what the script is and where it came from and everything. So who knows what's even real? But yeah, I mean, I guess if you're Russell Crowe, why not, right? There's probably a pretty hefty paycheck involved.
I mean, honestly though, like that does sound pretty balls to the walls. Like if I just won Best Actor and they're like, "What are we gonna do next?" and they're like, "I got it. We're gonna have gods bring you back from the dead, and you're gonna kill Jesus Christ." And I'd be like, "Giddy up, baby, let's ride."
Yeah, right. I can't do no wrong. It'll be fine.
Like let's take that one all the way to the bank.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I like that's the only like piece of crazy trivia that I know about this movie. And like I said, there is like you can find a PDF of what's supposed to be that draft online somewhere.
It is absolutely the craziest piece of trivia there. And I mine the one thing that I found that isn't really so much crazy, but it was just something that like when I read, I was like, that sounds insane. And is it's so it's basically with the tiger scene, the whole fight scene when they get the
Oh
tigers
yeah.
loose and everything. And of course, back in the day, we used real animals. And so they used five real tigers. And I was reading that the only line of defense that they had against like the tigers, like fucking up Russell Crowe, the other actors, was just trained veterinarians off camera with just sniper rifle tranquilizers.
Oh jeez.
Like Sarah Harding in The Lost World. Like, and
Right.
all I
They'd
could
have to
think,
like make a shot. Like
yeah,
if that guy misses a
yeah,
shot, Gladiator's a very different
right?
movie.
And all I could think is, dude, the fucking pressure on set that day for every single person. Like Russell Crowe, like I gotta hit my marks and not get fucking mauled to death. The trainers
Yeah.
have to be like, dude, if shit goes down, I gotta be the best marksman you've ever fucking seen in your life. And for
Yeah.
Ridley Scott to be like, dude, if anything goes wrong, my career is ruined. They'll never let me make another movie ever again.
Oh yeah, could you imagine if you were the guy who mauled Russell Crowe with a tiger? You'd like
Right?
you'd be so screwed.
Like I would love to be like like just like a gaffer or like it's just somebody on set that day that had like no pressure and was just like, dude, I just might see some shit go down today.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. I mean, it's weird too, because like a couple of those scenes with the tiger, like there's like shots where it looks not very real, is like the best way that I can put it.
Well,
Like
I
something
would
about the way the
imagine.
tiger is like moving compared to everybody else and like the frame rate, I guess, like looks off. So like I wonder like how close he ever actually got
Yeah,
to the
I would
tigers.
imagine that they probably used a lot of tomfoolery in those shots to make sure that
Yeah.
like there was
But
never a chance that like they had to call in any of the marksmen.
yeah, but then again, there's like scenes though where like the tiger kind of like drapes itself over Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Like at least a couple where it's like standing up like latched onto him kind of. So I don't know that maybe that was real.
It's possible. Who knows? All I know is that must have been a fucking loaded day on set, man. I would have been shitting my pants no matter who I was on set that day.
Yeah, pretty great scene by the way. That's like one
That's
of the
bad.
things that I
Yeah.
remember most from
Yeah.
seeing it from way back when.
Yeah, I think that's probably like the action set piece that everyone would probably first call to mind. Like if you bring up Gladiator to them. Because
Yeah, I'd
honestly,
say it's
like,
like it's between that one and the one with the chariots.
yeah, or that one too. Because honestly, when I hadn't watched this movie in like 2 or 3 years, and I had already forgotten that they open up with like a huge battle scene.
Oh yeah, yeah, I love the opening to that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So you like so every time you watch it, you just so latch on to like those just beautifully choreographed gladiator scenes that you like always forget about. Like, oh yeah, they have that like bitching opening fight scene too.
Totally.
So that was my one loaded trivia. Hopefully next week we've got some better loaded stuff up on deck. But this movie had a pretty spectacular run at the box office. We were looking into it as we were doing before. So why don't you run them down some box office numbers, Jim? Because you don't really see movies like this today do this kind of business.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, so it was released May 5th of 2000. So this is like right around the start of the summer movie season this comes
Which
out. Like
how
that's
crazy is that? Gladiator. Can you imagine like a movie like Gladiator today kicking off like the summer movie season?
I mean, kinda, yeah. I feel like a lot of superhero movies are just Gladiator, like only less good.
Yeah,
Like it's like it definitely
fair.
feels like a blockbuster to me. There's a lot of like action set pieces in it, and
It's very
I
larger
mean,
than life.
I definitely take your point though that this kind of like sword and sandal like genre movie doesn't really make money anymore.
Doesn't make anything anymore. Like, what was it? Well, obviously, like we were still coming out of the effects of COVID, but I can't imagine that this movie otherwise would have done big anyway. But that movie, The Last Duel, that Ridley Scott did, I think it came out like 2021 or 2022, which was like this too. It was like a very historical period piece,
Yeah,
and it did nothing.
yeah. And then
The
what was
interest,
that
it'll
other
be,
one? That like medieval one, like going like the Green Knight, like based on the
oh
King
yeah,
Arthur
yeah, yeah,
story.
that one too. Yeah, that didn't do much either.
But yeah, so I mean, like, I can see how this movie is a blockbuster, but I could also see what you're talking about. This kind of like period piece, like historical drama, usually doesn't like light up the box office. But yeah, so opening weekend it did 34.8 million. Um,
Not bad.
that yeah, not bad for a movie in 2000, right? I mean, I don't know if it was number one that week.
Sure,
Um,
sure it was.
Yeah, right. I would imagine.
Yeah, sure it won
The
that
third
weekend.
highest opening weekend for an R-rated film, behind Air Force One and Interview with a Vampire at the time. It finished with
It's
503 million worldwide.
and yeah, see, like that's
Yeah,
impressive.
that's a good number, and like that's also like to go to that from 34.8 million. There's like a lot that went right in terms of like word of mouth and reviews and
Yeah,
like people hearing about how good this movie was.
it had legs. Like that movie
Right,
was
right.
around for a while,
In a
which
way
is
that
what
I
you
don't
want
know
your
that a
movie to
lot of
do.
movies, in the world of streaming, like ever have anymore.
Yeah, like you don't see too many movies these days that get that like huge run where they're in theaters for like I think like the last one we saw was like Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, right. And but I mean, like in terms of like starting with a relatively small opening weekend,
Oh
and like
yeah, and
over
then like
time, just like
exploding.
banking money and banking
Yeah,
money. Like,
like the
cause
Avatar
like there's
movies.
definitely big movies that stay in theaters for a while, but they always start big.
Yeah, and I mean, this movie was commercially successful as well as critically successful. We talked about already how it was Best Picture winner. It ended up winning 5 Academy Awards: costume design, sound, visual effects, and Best Actor. Which it crap. I need to talk about this for a second, and
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to end up diving into all this anyway, but we might as well break the elephant in the room here. How did Russell Crowe win Best Actor for this? Like he is great in this movie, but his role is to just be cool for the most. Like look sad, but also be cool. Like
Yeah.
he does very little like heavyweight acting in this, as opposed to like Joaquin Phoenix, who is like chewing the fuck out of every single frame of this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, so there's a couple things in there, right? First, I'll say Joaquin Phoenix like absolutely carries the movie throughout the
Dude,
middle to the
the
end.
the fight scene, I don't remember which Gladiator fight scene it is, but there's one of them and it cuts to Joaquin Phoenix and he just like sticks his tongue out but like also makes this like grunting noise like he's getting turned on by what's happening,
Yeah,
and it's
it's the one where they're fighting the
the
chariots, like when
chariots,
they're
right?
like
That's what I thought.
supposed to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
destroyed and killed. Yeah.
it is the funniest and best bit of acting like I've seen. Like it's so hilariously great.
Yeah. So no, I mean I agree. He carries the movie, and like I'll probably talk more about him a little bit later. But Russell Crowe, I mean, like he's not bad in it, I guess. Like he's just kind of there, and
That's what
but
I'm saying. Like he's
I
not
will say
bad.
though, he's doing a good job of playing the typical character you see in these like sword and sandal like epic movies, because these movies always seem to boil down to like a Christ-like figure versus Rome, right? Like that's always what these kind of like epic movies are about. So like he's literally supposed to be the guy that everybody's like, "Oh my god, he's so cool." Like
Yeah.
that's like his
No, and
whole job.
he does a great job because that's a hard part to pull off, being the less flashy character. Like we talked about it with Leo in Titanic, like having to
Right.
play the character that doesn't have the quirk or the like flash. Like you just need to be the character that the audience can see themselves in.
Yeah,
So
and I mean like absolutely. And I think like part of it is I think the movie is so well written that he doesn't seem like he's doing a lot, but the character is so good that like I
yeah,
really feel like he doesn't need to be great for it to be great, I guess is what I would
yeah,
say.
I feel that. And it's funny that you say that it's so well written because one of the things that I was looking at when I was researching about this movie is that they started shooting large portions of this movie without a finished script, to the point that like
Wow.
they were making shit up on the fly just to film shit.
Wow.
So
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
it's insane that this movie feels so put together and complete, knowing that
Yeah.
just they were showing up on set and they were like, "Oh, we got to say like you should say something here. What would you say?" And they just had to come up with something that he would say. And
Yeah, right.
that's where he came up with the badass line where he's like, on my mark, unleash hell."
Yeah, yeah.
It just
And I
rides
mean,
off.
yeah, like that right. That kind of ad-libbing is cool. Like, you know, and like that's the kind of stuff like you could say like come up with in the moment. But I yeah, I didn't realize the script wasn't finished. That's pretty interesting because it seems like, and I guess I'm probably skipping ahead here and getting into like what I liked about it.
I mean,
Um
by all means.
yeah, but it's for a movie that's like 2.5 hours long. There was like zero fat on that movie. Like it's like everything was very to the point. It felt like
It was one of those movies that, despite its length, never felt like it overstayed its welcome, and every scene complemented and built on the other, which is a
oh,
testament
100%. Yeah,
to how good they are as filmmakers, that they were able to pull that out without like a finished script, that they could make something so tight
yeah,
like that.
yeah. And like I agree with everything you're saying about like how there like every scene like builds on itself and like leads into this amazing story. The first like half hour of that movie are so good like is so good, and it's so good at laying out like the conflict that's going to happen in this and throughout the middle to the end. Everything matters, like you say. It opens with that big battle, and one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie is like after they've won and the dust is settled and like the emperor is kind of with Maximus like surveying the troops and everything, and Joaquin Phoenix shows up, and they make such a great way of showing like he showed up after the battle's over. He's had absolutely nothing to do with this. He has no share in the glory or any of it. And his dad has zero respect for him because of all that. And
Yeah,
like they do that in like 2 seconds of screen time. And it's just so well done. That builds into like what the whole conflict throughout that first part of the movie is. It's like who's gonna succeed this person as emperor.
yeah, and it builds up these two great opposing forces in Maximus and Commodus. And I love that too. Like you were saying, like Commodus shows up after the fight's already been won, but he has no problem still putting him in the pejorative with them, where he's just like, "Have we won the battle already?" It's like, motherfucker,
Right.
you weren't even here.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. And another reason why I love it is because Joaquin Phoenix is such a good villain in this movie, and everything he does is so wormy and awful and just like backhanded and everything, that it's
yeah,
such a great way to introduce you to him because
yeah,
that's like the wormiest way to start.
yeah. Even just the way like the cadence of his voice is like all lends to that character. Like he's got that kind of like wispy, just like floaty like way of speaking, that it just
Well,
feels
right.
so weaselly.
Right, because he's a big phony. He's
Yeah,
like he's putting on a show all the
yeah,
time, you know?
yeah.
It's so
But
good.
like it's so good. Like he just fucking nailed his character to a T. And like his whole speech when he's talking to his dad when he finds out that he's not going to be emperor, and like
Yep.
he realizes like all of these traits that like he never got that he could have had if only his dad loved him, like is just such a
Right.
like fucking such a good indictment of like a villain, of like being able to relate to your villain but not relating to the means by which he accomplishes his things, but you're just like I understand, like he's just
Oh,
it's great
right.
writing, it's
Yeah.
fantastic writing.
He's just such a good character, and like he
Yeah,
gets like progressively whinier as the movie goes on, and it just fits so perfectly with what's happening. It's just
yeah.
choice, you
He
know?
just gets insanely demented as we go on too. Like I had
Yes.
completely forgotten how badly he was horny for his sister in that movie.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that's one of the things I'll never forget about that movie. Yeah, like he like makes like a point. And that's another great scene where he's like it's kind of reminds me of that scene at the end of Nightcrawler. You know what I mean? Like where like he's not really like being like physically aggressive, but he's just making it clear in their conversation that he is like totally dominant. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
but like he's
it's
got the power. Yeah, like right, it's after he's gotten the jump on their plans and she's like stuck in there and he's like, "You will love me. You will bear me in air." Like you
yes,
it's like
exactly.
Jesus Christ, man. Yeah.
And she
And he doesn't
knows
even
like
go near her to like put a hand like to just even touch her. He just has to use his voice.
right, exactly. And like the actress in that scene is so good too because the way she plays like you can just see like the resignation on her face, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that
Like
she's just
she's
like,
like
I'm
crying
fucked.
like listening to him whisper in her ear. Um
Fantastic character work by pretty by both of them, him and the actress Connie Nelson, I think is
yeah,
her
yeah, that
name.
sounds right.
I forget what her character name is in the
I couldn't tell you.
movie. But yeah, the two of them especially, and the way they play off of each other in all their scenes are they're the biggest highlight acting wise for me in the
Yeah,
film.
I
Like
agree with that for sure.
they just fucking soar. And of course you love Russell Crowe, but he's just cool. He's just the cool guy.
Yeah,
Like
well
you're
no,
just like
he
he,
definitely plays like a great straight man to Joaquin Phoenix's like over the top villain. You know what I mean?
yeah. It does help too that he gets like all the cool lines. So like all the like quotable dialogue that you want that you remember from the movie is straight out of his mouth. Like our
Totally.
opening, a Maximus Decimus like that whole speech, the on my signal, raise hell. And one of my favorite ones is when he's hyping up his team before they're gonna go like fight in the beginning, and he just goes like, "What we do in life echoes in eternity." And you're just like, "Dude, that's fucking badass, man!" Like,
Yeah.
and then he starts talking about like the fight. He's like, "Fear not, brothers, for if you go into the fight and you see those beautiful lights, then you are already in Elysium and you are dead."
Yes.
And they all just start
Yeah.
cracking up.
Yeah. Like he's got like yeah, like right, that's before the fight in the opening, right? Before they
Yeah,
go
like
and
he's
fight the Germanians.
yeah, like he's just one of those dudes. You're just like, dude, I could get a beer with Maximus, man. Like, and we could chill, bro. Like, we get into some fun stuff.
Yeah, right, right. He's got his men on his back. Yeah. No, and that's like I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of this movie too. Like so like I already talked about the first half hour I think is like brilliant in terms of setting up like the depth of these two guys and the confrontation that they're going to have. And what I really really like is that in that beginning you can sort of get a sense of like what that confrontation will look like, right? Like one of them's like a general and one of them's more of a like a skeevy politician, and you know you think they'll like battle for the throne and yada yada, and there'll be armies, and then like none of that happens, like absolutely none of that, nothing even close to that is what happens, right? Like that stuff is over in about 10 seconds and Maximus is being taken into the woods to be executed, right? And I just think that's such a good twist. Like if you just sat down to saw this movie and maybe somebody didn't tell you it was called Gladiator, I don't know that you would see that coming. And
Yeah.
it's such a unexpected and great way for this conflict that they've set up to now play out.
Yeah. And it has such a fantastic payoff that still plays upon the characters of like you said, like it's not going to be this big army battle. It's just ends up being a one-on-one fight between them, and Commodus still takes no chances to be a squirming little devil by stabbing
Yeah.
him like right under the rib cage to give himself the advantage in the
Right.
fight, even
Right.
though we've seen that Commodus is a good fighter in the beginning of the movie, like when he's training with like the six
Yes,
guys.
there's that like 10-second clip of him
Yeah,
fighting when they walk up to the tent. Yeah, which
yeah,
again, great setup. You
yeah.
need that there so he has
Great
some
setup.
kind of credibility.
Yeah. But it shows that like no
Um,
matter what, he'll still take like whatever cheating, like underhanded way out that he can to get ahead.
yeah, and I just like I can't like I feel like I'm getting like real nerdy about this story, but I just can't like avoid it. Um, the way that Maximus in that first half hour is supposed to be like the embodiment of everything that's good about Rome, right? It's like
Yeah.
honor and like valor and like you like show your mettle in battle, and that Commodus is like everything that's corrupt about it. And like how he has a conversation with Marcus Aurelius about how he's fighting for Rome because like otherwise what's the point of all this? And Marcus Aurelius is like, man, you don't really get how corrupt it is these days. Like,
Yeah.
when was the last time you were home? Because it's
Yeah.
actually kind of terrible now.
He's like,
And
bro, you've
like,
never even been to Rome, man.
right, and Marcus Aurelius is choosing him to be the emperor because he thinks that this guy is like uniquely built to fight that corruption. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah.
the right kind of guy to do it. And but Russell Crowe wants no part of it. But what he doesn't realize is it like he can't avoid it. It's already too late. He's
Yeah.
already sucked into it.
You've already
And
shown your valor.
the way that through the second half of that movie he doesn't fight Commodus with armies and in battles with like the things that he knows and he's good at, and he has to fight him from within that corruption. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's like he's forced into that, and like it's the only way he can come out the other end. And like you're saying, like the penultimate moment in that Coliseum, the corruption is Commodus stabbing him in the back. You know what I mean? Like he can't get a fair shake. Like,
Yeah.
and he overcomes it anyway.
Right.
It's so great. It's like just for a 2.5 hour movie, the way it's all like there's no fat. Like everything in that first half hour like pays off in such a huge way.
It is fantastic. And it does has that nice little twist on like what you would expect this story to be, where it's like, all right, he had like Maximus has to go into Rome and he's going to have to deal with the scheming politicians and find his way to overcome them and bring them together. And it's like, no, he's going to do that by winning the hearts of the people in the
Right.
gladiator fights. Like it's
Right.
just such a different like
It's such a twist on
exploration,
it.
yeah, of
Exactly.
what you would expect this story to go in. And it's a fantastic direction. It's so much fun. It's so well done, and it's just such a wonderful exploration of that like dichotomy between those two characters.
Right. And then I mean like throughout the middle of the movie, the way that he like goes from, being this guy on a gurney basically where they're like treating his infected cut and like trying to keep him alive to that first gladiator fight where it's like literally just like their chum. You know what I mean? They like throw
Yeah, like
them
they're
out
just
of the
expected
gate.
to die.
Yeah, like they open the gate and there's already a guy slamming somebody in the face with like a morning star. Like it's
Yeah, right.
it's
He's just
so
got that
nuts.
the swinging whatever the fuck that thing is called, and he's just like sitting there waiting, just like swinging it around. And you just hear it whooshing from like behind the door.
Yeah. And he cracks a dude right in the face like as soon as it opens. Yeah. So like to go from that battle where they're like you're chained up and you're chum to like the way that he builds up throughout the thing, like from learning that he needs to like win over the crowd, and that's like the only tool he has at his disposal. Like he can't kill people too quickly because the whole
Yeah,
point is that he needs people to root for him. It's the only way he's gonna
got it.
get anywhere.
He's got to put on a show, which leads to the best goddamn line of the entire movie. The "Are you not entertained? Is this not why
Yeah,
you're here?"
yeah.
He just
Well, and
throws a
that's
sword into the crowd, like
yeah. He throws it at the like guys in like the
yeah, in the
lordy
stands. Yeah,
box,
the
like the
Lord, yeah,
people in charge.
the guys in the VIP box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
He
and the
Maximus is a WWE wrestler, like just knows how to get
right,
the fans like right
right.
in on his side. He's a great face, great face.
Yeah. And then yeah, I mean like that battle, I mean it's just another like great set piece and great like setup and payoff. Like that Battle of Carthage they have at the Colosseum, where they're just supposed to get like, you know, murdered by these people in like way better equipment, and they don't have any chance really, and he turns it into like they win like pretty impressively, right? That whole sequence where he's got the helmet on and like the emperor like wants to have like an audience with him, and then like he like turns his back on the emperor and he's walking
Slave, you
away.
turn your back on me? How
Yeah,
dare you?
right, right, right. And like he like ends up revealing who he is and like basically saying like I'm gonna fucking kill you. You know what I mean? Like that's like with like an hour and a half left in the movie, and it's so great that that's like the basically the middle turning point of that movie is like, okay, all the cards are on the table now. He can't kill me because these people love me, and I'm gonna fight him tooth and nail every step of the way.
It's like at this point we're having like a chess game here in these gladiator
Yeah,
battles. Like he's like, I
right.
dare you to like call for my death right now. Like do it. Like and see
Yeah,
what happens.
it's amazing. It's just so great, and yeah, like I said, like the way that that builds up to that moment and then plays out throughout the second half, like the last like hour and a half or so of that movie. It's just yeah, it's great storytelling.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. It's such a well-made movie. I don't really have much that I would even sit there to gripe about, and which little ones that I do would mostly just be nitpicks at this point. Like I think my biggest one, which again is really just a nitpick, is I would have liked to have seen a little bit more character development out of some of the more supporting characters. Because, like, obviously, we get our big ones out of the trio, but everyone else just kind of feels like they're just rotating through the story, which for a story like this, when you're focused on, you're pretty much character driven between your top two characters, everyone else is kind of going to take back seat to that. But you look at
Yeah,
someone
of
like
course.
Yaman Hunso, he's pretty much just there for someone for Gladiator to talk to in between like Gladiator scenes. Like,
Yeah, it's weird. Like, if you want to talk about the difference between watching it now and watching it when I was a kid, I felt like when I was a kid that they were way better friends than like they ever actually became in the movie. You know what
yeah,
I
I
mean?
thought so too. Like I remember being like, dude, like I was like, yeah, it wasn't like these two guys against the world, and then it was kind of just like, no, that guy's just there. Like,
Yeah, it was like they just had like kind of a few very shallow conversations throughout the movie. They weren't
yeah,
really very close at
yeah.
all.
And the most you learn about the guy is like that one time where they're just sitting there, and he's like, my family's out there somewhere. It's like, oh, okay, cool, bro.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. And then even worse than that was the guy who gets like the
Yeah,
big like like
the muscle, yeah, the
giant
big
dude.
muscle dude.
Yeah, the muscly dude, yeah.
Yeah,
He's even worse. Like he's just kind of there for like the fight scenes, and like I think
yeah,
he takes an arrow in the leg at one point.
yeah. Well, he's just there to like train them in the early scenes and then just be like a helper to him and die at some point for him is
Yeah.
really all you ever learn. And then he does have one great scene though, like one of the really good humorous scenes of the movie when Maximus gets his plate of food and he's wondering if the emperor has poisoned it, and you get the big dude just goes and takes like a
Oh yeah,
spoonful of it
yeah,
and eats it and then fakes like he's choking to death.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That
that's when they
is
get the point.
that's
That's when
pretty
they really
ridiculous.
drive. That's when they really drive that point where it's like he can't kill you shady like this. Like you don't have to worry. Like he has to do it. He can't, like, you're untouchable at this point like this. Like he can't just underhanded murder you. Like
Oh yeah, right, right. Yeah. No, of course. And I love like how panicky Joaquin Phoenix gets like in that whole sequence of the movie when like Russell Crowe kind of has him on the back foot a little bit. Like he's just like alone like in his quarters like how is he alive? Like he's like so
like freaking
whiny
out.
about it.
Obviously, my men lied to me. And if they lied to me, they don't respect me. If they don't respect me, how
Yeah,
can they love me?
right. And it's like everywhere else he's pretending except in this scene right here when he feels like he can be himself with himself, and he's like just such a loser. He's like so panicky, he's got no control over any of it.
All this it's a dude that went so unloved for the majority of his life that like he needs it in like such horrific ways, like that like
Yeah,
love and acceptance.
Well, it's like he's faking it till he's making it, but he's like so always aware of the fact that he's faking it and he's not really good enough. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
that
so and it's
like he's one of those
that plays out so
characters.
well.
Yeah.
Plays out so well. But sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, he's like one of those people that like even if he got that love, he'd still be sitting there in the back of his head like I know I'm faking it, so there's no way they can really love me. They must be faking their love for me because I know I'm a fraud. So they must see through me and see that I'm a like he's just like
Right,
this
right.
self-fulfilling prophecy of like
Like he
insanity.
knows, yeah, he knows how much of an imposter he is. So like no
Yeah.
matter how much he plays up in front of everybody else, how strong and how well thought out this all is, he's completely losing it behind the scenes.
It's fantastic character work. Like for the as much as I can nitpick about like the supporting characters not getting a lot of play, the top two are it's just such a good character study of Commodus and Maximus that it's like it's a nitpick. Like, yeah, the other characters aren't developed as much, but like at the end of the day, do you care that much? Like,
Yeah,
no,
and I
doesn't
mean,
doesn't
and
take away anything for the movie for me.
yeah, and by the way, I feel like that's another thing that's like reminds me a lot of these sword and sandal type of movies. Like, isn't Ben-Hur kind of like that, where it's like it's really like this like decades long feud between these two particular guys. Like,
Yeah, 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 pretty much. Yeah, between Judah Ben-Hur and his brother, right? It's like not his brother, but like it's he's technically like his brother because like they took care of him, right?
yeah,
I
like
remember
exactly,
we
yeah,
watched it
and
so long ago that like I would need to rewatch that movie again.
yeah, like when Charlton Heston throws the spear into like the wall, I think he might call him brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like it reminds me of that movie in that sense that like it's about these two guys like who go down very different paths that end up converging anyway because it's just that's what's gonna happen. They're like
Yeah.
two
They're
opposing
just
sides.
yeah, that they're just set on a path that will invariably at one point or another collide with each other.
Yeah, and it's just and that's so perfect the way they set that up too, where he finds himself, and this is like probably the only kind of coincidental part of the movie is like he goes back and confirms that his family's dead, and then the next thing you know, he's with this like band of gladiators, and they never really tell you why they were there or like why they
Yeah,
picked him up
right.
or anything.
Like, why were they raiding for slaves? Like, at this dude's, like, clearly they were on his land. Like, he was in front of his house. Like, you tell me they
Yeah,
were just like, they're like, hey, I wonder what we got over here.
but also who cares? Because like it's like
Again,
it's just
it's a
such a
nitpick.
beautiful spot
Yeah.
to skip over everything and just be like, all right, here's where we are now.
Yeah.
Forget about everything else. It doesn't matter.
It's a nitpick because at the end of the day, it's just like it's something that you can just like gloss over quickly. And talk about that scene where he comes in on his family. Like, you want to talk about violent scenes in the movie? That to me the scene of seeing like his son getting ridden down by the horses
Yeah,
is easily the most violent scene in the movie to me. Like so
yeah,
much worse than any of the bloodshed that you see. Like that is so viscerally intense. Like you just see the horse just bull rush that kid's shoulder to the ground and then just like the rest of the horses come over him and you're like, Jesus Christ.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's like that part. That scene is definitely like over the top, and you're kind of actually getting to a thing maybe I didn't like as much. Which is anytime like his family was on screen or like he was thinking of his family, it like the movie jumped to this like really like Tony Scott esque like editing. You know what I mean? Like where it was
I
like kind of
mean,
like jumping back and forth between frames and like it was like
it
a
is
lot of
his
like
brother.
weird stuff. And oh yeah, that's true actually. I didn't even think of that. That
It is
yeah,
his
it's
brother.
Ridley Scott. But yeah, it had like that Tony Scott as you know what I'm talking about, right? Like
Yeah,
in all
yeah.
those like
Where
Tony Scott movies, it's like got that really like
it's
jumpy,
very
like
frenetic, it feels like.
yes,
It's just yeah.
yeah,
That was one of the things that I had too for like another nitpick of mine, especially you see it in the opening battle scene. It happens a bunch where it's just like that just frenetic, quick cutting action to the point that you just feel like overloaded and it's like I can you just slow down for a second, man? Like
yeah,
can you chill? Like I get it. It's intense, but like for fuck's sake, like
yeah.
I can't even follow what's happening.
I feel like that happens less in like the actual like gladiator scenes as the movie goes on.
Yeah, no, you really only feel it in that opening battle scene where he does that. And I think that was probably a choice that they made to show like battle is so like intense and violent and fast paced that like you almost can't even make sense of what's happening
Yeah,
when
and
you're
that's
in it.
that's definitely how I feel about that opening. Yeah, like
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
like it's like hard to tell like what's happening or who's winning. You just see like
yeah,
a lot of people like
yeah,
running out of corners and chopping people's heads off.
yeah. So like, so it's a choice. So obviously, like, while I don't like that as much per se, it's not anything that detracts from me for the movie because obviously that's just a stylistic choice that he went with to portray the battle. So
Yeah.
it's again, it's just another nitpick. But yeah, no, I do notice that at times he does like to employ his brother's technique of that, just like let's just like take out a few frames so it looks like this weird
Yeah.
style.
Right.
Just cut. It's yeah, it's
Yeah, and
bizarre. It's definitely
it
bizarre
seemed
at
like
times.
anytime they went to Elysium, quote unquote, that's when it like was really like prevalent. That's what I felt like.
Yeah. So I guess there's probably a reason it didn't win best editing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
If it was even up for it, I don't know. But I will say that every award that it did win, I firmly agree with because the sound in this movie was fan fucking tastic. And
Oh,
oh, and
yeah.
I will not miss another. I know I've missed it in so many other episodes, but I will not miss another opportunity to talk about how fucking good this soundtrack was. The soundtrack for this movie is fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer just knocked this one out of the park. And there was so many moments where I'm listening to it and I'm like, why does this just sound like Pirates of the Caribbean? Like
Dude, yeah.
I was
There's
reading,
one I'm pretty sure that there's one song that's like actually the song from Pirates of
yeah.
the Caribbean.
So I
Like the
was
dun
reading,
dun dun
yeah,
dun.
I was reading into it. And apparently there was a whole thing that was going on when he was making Pirates, where like he had worked on another movie. And because of some bullshit of the previous movie that he was working on, he wasn't allowed to take a job for like 6 or 8 months afterwards.
Oh,
So like he
really?
technically wasn't allowed to score pirates. So what he did was he got like his first in command or whoever is like one below the maestro and had him lead the orchestra and had him say that like he wrote the songs even though Zimmer was with him. And they were so time crunched that Hans Zimmer just reused a lot of the motifs from Gladiator. So that's
Yeah.
why the music is so fucking close. Because like the opening battle scene when it's building up and I'm listening and I'm like, this is Pirates of the Caribbean music. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, this is
Yeah.
hilarious.
I didn't notice it until way like late in the movie, but there was a point where I'm just like, wait, this is like just this is the song for Pirates. Like what the
There,
hell is that about?
there's like two or three songs that are just like straight from that. Well, I guess Pirates is straight from Gladiator because Gladiator came first. Either way, I got no issues with it because the songs fucking slap and they lead such like they really build up those big scenes with just stellar orchestra behind it, just really like building the moment. It's fantastic. I think I put four of the songs into my movie playlist that I have on my phone for when I
Oh
drive to
yeah.
work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, right. The sound, yes, the soundtrack was great. And I mean, I feel like this had to be a shoe in for Best Picture, right? Like, what else was up that year? I don't even know.
Well, we know it won Best Picture, obviously, but yeah, the question is what was it up against? Let's do some dirty work right now. Let's figure it out. I'm gonna do some sleuthing.
That's
That's
like the
the
year of
2001
the.
ceremony, but we're doing
Right, that's
all right
what I
here.
mean.
Yeah. All right, here we
Oh,
go.
wow.
All right, here we
Okay,
go. You
this year
ready?
was
You
actually
ready?
kind of stacked.
We got
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
I
ready.
already pulled it up. All right. Yeah, yeah, you're right. This is so it's up against Chocolat, adorable movie.
I don't
Fucking
know that I've ever seen that one.
oh, dude, adore. It's a delight. It's delightful. It's one of those movies, delightful. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which is a fucking fantastic movie.
Did you see
E-
that in theaters?
I did.
Is that
I no,
upcoming?
no, I did not see
Oh,
that in theaters.
ooh.
I unfortunately did not get into the Kung Fu game until much later in my movie going experience. Much to my chagrin because kung fu movies might be like one of my favorite genres, like up there with westerns and sci-fi. Like they're just so good. So I kick myself for not getting into kung fu movies until later. I think probably not until I saw Kill Bill was really when like I finally was like I should watch kung fu movies because these are really cool. and that's when I start. I think that's probably when I saw Crouching Tiger. It was probably right around after I saw Kill Bill, because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
set me on the path.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
So Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, a
fantastic. Yeah,
real classic movie.
absolutely up there. We got Aaron Brockovich,
Oh, Aaron Brockovich was
top,
that year.
yeah,
That was another Oscar
yeah,
darling.
top notch movie. Julie Roberts, fantastic in that. And then
I'm
rounding it
seeing
out,
Castaway.
were you seeing Castaway?
Castaway,
Traffic,
dude. Tom Hanks was
Traffic was the other
nominated
one.
for. Oh, I'm not sorry. I'm just looking at the Oscars in general.
Oh, you're just looking at. I was looking at
Best
Best
Picture.
Picture.
Yeah, sorry. Best Picture.
Those were the five Best Picture nominees: Gladiator,
Oh,
Chocolat,
Traffic.
yeah, Crouching Tiger, Aaron Brockovich, Traffic. So that's a pretty it's pretty stellar right there. That's five
Yeah, I mean,
fantastic movies right there.
that's a pretty stacked list, but like me personally, I would probably still pick Gladiator for sure.
Oh no, yeah, I think definitely out of the bunch, Gladiator. I think maybe the only one I would have even considered would be Crouching Tiger, but that's again because of my preference now for kung fu movies. But
Yeah, Crouching
all of
Tiger
these
is a
movies,
close second, I will
yeah,
say.
yeah, but all these movies in here were fantastic choices. I think
Oh, but
Traffic is
dude,
probably my least favorite out of those.
just look at some of these other movies that were up for awards though. Castaway, obviously Tom Hanks was up for best actor in a leading role.
So
So
that's it. Yeah,
Russell Crowe beat him out for that. Ed Harris and Pollock that year.
Jesus. No, no. Here's the real
Um,
question: Was
almost,
Joaquin Phoenix at least nominated?
oh,
Because
an actress in a supporting
this man
role.
better at least been
He
fucking
was nominated and he
okay.
lost to Benicio del Toro in Traffic.
I don't know.
That's
I don't know about that one.
that's but yeah, other movies that year, Almost Famous came out, was up for a bunch of
Oh,
awards.
that's that's
Um,
that's a fucking just sit at home. You need a pick me up movie right there.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou came out that year. Roger Deakins was
Yeah,
nominated for cinematography.
there's a movie.
The Patriot came out that year.
You want to talk about historical epics right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about the
Another great
Patriot.
historical epic.
Yeah, you want to talk about a historical epic that has no bearing in reality whatsoever?
Yeah, but no,
Oh,
just
well,
like
good
that
luck.
that's like a lot of like heavy hitter movies that like I remember being like really popular and really highly reviewed like when they
Yeah,
came out.
really big when they came out. Yeah, that was a stellar year. But yeah, no, obviously, Gladiator sits atop the mountain after all of those movies that you just named there, name dropped. I would still put Gladiator at the top of the pile.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that. It's just the story's like too tight and like for a 2.5 hour movie, like I said, it's like amazing how little fat there is on it and just how well it keeps me involved for that long of that for that amount of time.
Yeah, yeah, never meanders, never strays away from the core principle of just Maximus versus Commodus and the build up to them. And it's just a fantastic character study. And that's one of those movies that even though there is plot that's driving it forward, it still feels very much like a character driven movie where the characters are driving the plot more than the plot's driving the characters.
A hundred
So it's
percent, yeah.
yeah. And those movies tend to always be
The
leagues
best
above.
movies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
leagues
like
above other movies because
yeah, because
it's
I actually care when stuff happens. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
exactly. When you
when
get
people
those
confront each other and like there's like injuries and deaths, like I actually give a shit.
there's meaning to the madness because you actually care about these characters living or dying.
Yeah,
Just
like
yeah,
at the
yeah,
end, I want Maximus to live so bad, you know?
yeah,
And like I don't get that, which is like satisfying in a weird way. Because he gets everything he wants. Like he rights the ship before he dies, you know?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
like yeah, I'm like genuinely sad when he like kind of like gets he like makes it, but he doesn't make it at the same
Yeah.
time.
He gets what he wants, but it was at the cost of everything, which was everything he was willing to give.
Yeah, and his like loyal lieutenant like gets hung from the tree at the end. Like everybody
Yeah.
gets imprisoned and dies. It's like
Yeah,
very sad.
if you think about it, with the exception of like Yaman Hunso, every other character that you root for in this movie pretty much dies.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's all worth it because they kill the one that I wasn't rooting for at all.
Very true. Actually,
Yeah,
yeah, And then
Which
it is
how
bittersweet at
long?
the end too. Go on.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
That that fucking coward motherfucker, I forget his name. That like was his boy in the beginning, but then showed up and he's like, "Why do you
Oh
have your sword?"
yeah,
Quintus, I think it was.
yeah, Quintus, the guy who
Yeah,
in the beginning is like questioning every order, and like Russell Crowe's like, no, it's fine, just do it, and then he betrays him. Yeah,
yeah.
when Commodus kills Marcus Aurelius, like I betrays him.
Then finally at the end, he's just like, "No one give him a sword," and it's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
you want to get
right.
down, bro?" Like,
Which, by the way, how long do you think that the like from them getting to Rome, how much time would you say passes? They said it's like 150 days of games, right? Like, was it the whole
yeah,
150 days that they were there?
I don't think so. There is one point where they're doing one of the fights and they say it's like day 46 or something. But
Okay,
that's the only mention they give of like what day it is, of like what day the games they're at, and then they never say again until the end of the movie.
yeah.
So you have no
Cause
idea
dude,
like
what
how
a
much time
crazy,
is.
what a crazy 2 months in Rome, huh? Like
Yeah,
that
right,
is
dude. Like
like
you're like, yo, bro, you going to work today? Like, nah, bro, day 78 of the games,
yeah,
man.
dude.
Like,
Dude, didn't you hear the emperor's fighting a guy to death in the Colosseum later? Like, no, I'm not going to work. That's a kind
yeah,
of a
right.
big deal.
You
Like,
fucking, dude, I love that too. Like when he fucking kills the emperor and it's just deathly quiet. And like I just picture
yeah.
like some dude up in the stands be like, yo, bro, like, did the emperor just get fucking killed, bro?
Yeah, it's like, guys, did that really just
Like
happen? Like, no
it's like, bro,
way.
like, do we not have a leader anymore, bro? Like,
Yeah.
did our leader just challenge the gladiator to one-on-one combat? Like,
Yeah, that's what like, dude. What a crazy 2 months. Like,
yeah.
could you imagine the president just like fighting like so like El Chapo to death or something? Like,
Like you wake up one morning and you're just like getting your marketplace ready, and they're like, "Yo, bro, did you hear about the games today, bro? Like the
yeah,
Emperor challenged Gladiator to 1v1."
yeah, dude. It's
You're
like,
like, "Bro,
man,
the
they've got a
scalper,
score to settle.
the scalper has probably made bank that day." They're like, "Yo, who needs two?
Yeah,
Who needs two? Emperor versus
yeah.
the Gladiator, baby.
It's so
Got primo
wild.
seats."
Yeah. And dude, I don't think we talked about it, but their fight at the end is so good too. Like the way he stabs him beforehand is so perfect because it's just like God, I really hate Joaquin Phoenix. I want him to die so bad.
Yeah, like
Um but like yeah, their fight is so good. It's like kind of like knockdown drag out. And then when it gets down to like the part you were talking about where Quintus like won't give him the sword and
you
he's
feel like
going
the
after Russell
power
Crowe with
shift.
like the knife, like he's got like the dagger, and Russell Crowe's just like blocking it and like slapping him around, like
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that it's very like visceral and not so much choreographed. Like it feels just like rough and tumble. And I
yeah,
like that it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like they don't draw it out and make it like this big, huge fight. Like it goes on for maybe like 5 minutes, but like it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like as soon as he gets that opening, he just knifes him in the throat. And you're just like, oh shit,
yeah,
like he's fucking dead.
yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, and I just love the way it plays out because like it's the perfect ending for a guy like Commodus. Like he's just so wormy and weaselly the whole time, and it ends with him like of his own choice, like being in a ring one on one with the guy who's the polar opposite of that, just
yeah,
like punching him in the face and like slapping him around and just like he like there's nowhere for him to run anymore, you know?
yeah,
It's like he finally
exactly.
like can't weasel his way out of it anymore.
And his last thoughts on this earth were probably just like the guy that stole my father's love deserved it. Like
Yeah,
he was
wow.
the better man.
What a cap to that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, I think that's the perfect capture. Like, what more can you say about such a fantastic film? All right, let's dive in now to our final ratings. As always, me and Jim both rate these movies on our own scale of 0 to 5 stars, and then we add them up to a tally out of 10 and see where they rank in our rankings here of all the movies that we've done so far here on the podcast. Jim, Gladiator, final rating. Let's hear it.
I am going to say 4.5.
Ooh, all right. Is there
Not
anything?
quite going to do a perfect score, but
Okay,
I'm going pretty high.
is there anything there that's keeping you from that 5 star mark? Or is it just
No.
that you think I'm also going to give five and you don't want to have this be another perfect movie? Are you thinking
I
about
mean,
you're thinking
I
about the
mean,
list, aren't you?
no, I mean maybe a little bit, yeah. Like the thing you just said is definitely in my head. I don't know what you're gonna give it, but I do worry that we're gonna give out two tens out of our first five movies. Yeah, I think that that's like a little invalidating.
I mean, but
Um,
when out of the five movies are two movies that are considered like some of the greatest movies of their era.
well, okay, like all right, so this is an interesting way to look at this, right? Would you say that this is equal in caliber to Titanic? Like if you had to put these against each other 1v1, which would you say you prefer?
So if we're putting them against each other 1v1, Titanic gets the edge.
Yeah, it's a like you
Titanic,
think it's a
yeah,
better movie, right? Like
Titanic
that's
is the
your
better
opinion.
movie, but I'd still give them the same star rating.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Well, feel free to do that. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. That's my
Okay,
rating.
all right, all right. A
It's
4.5 from Mr. James O'Reilly, and
very
obviously, yeah,
close to
I
perfect.
there
Very
you go.
close.
I've spoiled it for myself already. I am going to give it a perfect 5 stars. There's nothing overtly in this movie that negatively impacts this movie at all for me. Like it finished and I was like, I could watch that movie again right now and still enjoy it just as
I
much as I
did.
did the first, like having just watched it.
I
And I think
watched
that's a
I
huge
watched like
test.
the first 45 minutes again, like as soon
This,
as I was done with it. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's a huge test for movies for me. In getting a 5 star is the rewatchability goes a long way with me towards getting that perfect mark for me for 5 stars is how often can I go back to this movie? And every time I watch this movie, I'm reminded of why I can watch this movie over and over and over again because it's just that fantastic. So getting the 5 star mark for me. It might be a bit because obviously there's the nostalgia of seeing it at a young age and being enamored with it, and it's also coupled with the fact that it is a fantastic movie. But that's what I'm going with. I'm giving it my perfect 5 out of 5. So 5 from me, 4.5 from Jim puts Gladiator in the second spot, just behind Titanic with a
Yeah.
9.5, which I'm okay with that. I can live on that.
Yeah, like I said, like it's a really great movie and it's one of my all-time favorites. Um I don't know. The rating system is interesting to keep track of. It's like kind of hard to like
It's
I
fun
don't
though.
know.
It's funny to see how these are going to shake because right now Gladiator's at a 9.5, which is only 2 points higher than the Lost World Jurassic Park.
I mean, yeah, I mean, right. Well, and then like this is kind of like what I think all critics, anybody who's rating something has to deal with, which is like it's never going to be a perfect system, you know, like and
No,
like
it
a lot of what I rate something is going to be like how well it meets my expectations or like how well I think it did what it was trying to do. So, I mean, like Lost World versus Gladiator, I don't know. One of them's probably like way better, but The Lost World, for what it is, I think it does a great job.
very true. I would agree with that. But yeah, it's all just fun ranking these up here when we put these. These obviously don't really mean much when it comes down to it. This is just a fun way for us to keep track and see which movies are going to embarrass us when we end up putting them at some point on the
Rugrats.
list. Yeah.
Rugrats.
What
Rugrats is going to end up way higher than something else that it has no business being way higher than.
Rugrats is going to absolutely demolish a movie at some point, and it's going to be the funniest thing ever. And I can't wait until we get to whatever that movie is down in the pipe that's gonna pop up and do it. But I know there's one in there, and it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
hilarious, and it's
So
gonna be
what do we got coming up next?
so. We're dropping in. We're next. We are Gladiator was the only 2000 movie that I saw in theaters.
Huh. Okay.
Crazy, right? Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
already moving into the land of
Especially
2000.
with the ones we all just named, like that
I
were up
know
for Oscars that year.
there was a lot. I wish that my parents had a little bit more consistency in taking me to the movies at a young age, especially
Yeah,
knowing how much I enjoyed going to the movies. The fact that all I saw in theaters in 2000 was Gladiator
yeah. I mean, hey,
hurts.
you picked a good one, and like
I mean, yeah,
I know I saw a lot of those movies that I listed for the Oscars, but I don't think I saw a lot of them in theaters. I think I
yeah,
saw
like
like most of them on video.
yeah, when you're young like that, you mostly, especially us back then growing up in the age of Blockbuster, a lot of these movies were the Friday night movies. Like
Yeah,
that's
renting
what it,
movies was
yeah,
like a big deal.
that's
Yeah,
what it was. Yeah, like back then, like you didn't go to the movie theater on Friday night. You went to Blockbuster and got whatever the new movie was that came out on Blockbuster.
yep.
So that was the thing. But now we move into 2001, getting 1 year closer to the time when we started going to the movies all the time together. We're inching our way towards it. But our next movie, I'll give you some hints, see if you can figure it out. It is a
Okay.
disaster movie. It
Okay.
was based on a true story set in a New England town, and it stars everyone's favorite Boston,
Oh
Mark
wait, no, I think I
Mark
got it already.
Mark Wahlberg. So
Is it the
what
perfect
movie?
storm?
It is The Perfect Storm.
Oh boy.
Next week we will be journeying up to those northern England towns, and we will be joining Mark Wahlberg, George Clooney, and Diane Lane as we
I don't think I've ever seen this movie.
watch The Perfect. You've never seen The Perfect Storm?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen the perfect storm.
Oh, dude, you are in for a treat. Directed by Wolfgang Peterson, who's made such classics as Das Boot, Troy, Poseidon.
Ooh. Troy, another great sword and sandal movie, by the way.
We will be getting to that movie soon enough once we dive into our 2004 movies.
Oh
But yeah,
yeah, soon
next
enough.
soon, yeah, soon enough, soon enough. But yes, next week will be the 2001 disaster film, The Perfect Storm. This is going to be a fun one. If it ends up being a first time watch for Jim, we'll see if when he watches it, if it sparks any memories of seeing it, or if this is going to be a true first timer for Mr.
Yeah, I
James
don't think I
O'Reilly.
may have seen like bits and pieces of it, but I've definitely never seen the whole
Definitely
movie.
never seen the whole. Well, all right. So this is gonna be a fun one for you. There's a lot. This is one of those movies that's chock full of that guy, that guy, that girl. Like there's so
Okay,
many like character actors that would go on to be big, huge names. I'm not gonna say any of them because I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to get that enjoyment of watching the movie and being like, oh fuck,
sure,
that guy, that guy. But
sure. I think
they
I'll keep like a running list
yeah, just keep like a
of all the
tally.
that guys I run
Yeah,
into.
all the that guys that you see in this movie because they are chock full of them. But that will be the fun one for next week's episode. That will do it for all of us here in this week's episode. Jim, do you have anything left to sign off for the people? Another week of just
Were you
pure
not
laughter.
entertained?
Yeah. He's working on it.
Were you not entertained by this podcast?
We were entertained.
Is this not what you're here for?
Strength and honor.
Yeah. No, I didn't think of anything to say at the end.
He's working on it, people. He'll get there.
Yeah.
But
One of
that'll
these
do it.
days I'll remember to do
One of these
that.
days, he'll have a cool sign off for himself. It's not going to be this week. Maybe next week with the perfect storm, he'll get the perfect catchphrase. But it's not
Oh
tonight.
wow.
You like that one?
That'd
I'm
be
chock full
perfect.
of them. I'll keep dropping them left and right. But until next time, everybody, as always, we'll see you at the movies.